Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
So Apple last week at the Worldwide Developers Conference announced one new computer, a new MacBook Air, based on the 4th generation Intel chip, the Haswell, and here it is. Of course, I had to order it right away. This is the 13-inch. They did 11 and 13-inch MacBook Airs. And if you look at it right off the top, you might say, well, gosh, how is that different? Because it does look very much the same as previous generations of MacBook Air. In fact, even down to the ports, it's got 2 USB 3 ports, the new MagSafe 2 connector. There's a headphone jack. On the other side, a mini display port, which is I'm a big fan of. Those work very nicely. Can get HDMI out of there, too, with a converter. Another USB, that's an SDXC card reader. You might have noticed if you have a very, very sharp eye, there's a slight difference here. There's two, you can't see it. There's 2 little tiny dots, dual array microphones. The reason is they're doing the same thing on the iPhone and the MacBook Retina where they there, you can see it. Look at that. One of them is for noise canceling. And actually, I found this on the MacBook Retina. It's pretty much the same on this MacBook Air. The sound quality is quite good. In fact, I don't feel the need to use headsets on making phone calls and so forth using Skype with this. It really does give you quite good sound. Nobody's ever complained. There are some differences. The battery is about 8% larger. Just a slight bit. They're doing a big difference in battery life, and that's really the thing that people are paying attention to right now. On the 11-inch MacBook Air, Apple's claiming 9 hours of battery life. On this 13, 12 hours. I haven't had it long enough to really give you an accurate reading, but I have to say I've used only a quarter of the available power on here, and I've been using it quite heavily. Apple says 6.5 hours remaining, which is slightly less than 12 hours. I do think you're going to get that kind of a battery life, and all the other reviewers who've had it for a little bit longer are claiming excellent battery life, more than 12 hours in some cases in normal use. So that's pretty impressive. It also has a much faster SSD. I was very surprised to find out when I benchmarked it that it was the fastest SSD I'd ever used, except for one on my Mac Pro using the PCI Express bus, and there's a reason for that. Apple has moved their solid-state drive off the SATA bus, and on the new MacBook Airs, they're on the PCI Express bus, and that makes a very, very big difference. We're talking 600 megabytes a second read and write on this thing. Very fast. They offer it in a stock configuration of 128 gig hard drive, 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's an SSD hard drive at a starting price of $10.99. These are a little less expensive, actually, than the MacBook Airs of previous years. And there's one thing that you might wonder about. The processor speed is a little bit slower. This is a maxed-out MacBook Air, so I put an i7 in it running at only 1.7 gigahertz, although it will step up to faster speeds. Slightly slower processor speeds on here, giving you slightly slower benchmark results, but I have to tell you, you won't notice the difference. And one of the benefits, of course, because it's using Haswell, is much, much better battery life. And I think that this is plenty fast enough. However, the slower processor speed and the desire for increased battery life do mean that we're not going to get the best screen resolution possible. This is, not a Retina display. It's 1440 by 900, which is nowadays, I think, a little low for a 13-inch notebook. Apple has really defined this category. The MacBook Air was the first Ultrabook before Intel even thought of the phrase Ultrabook, and all the other Ultrabooks really are copying the MacBook Air. It is still a gorgeous design, thin, light, very portable. And, of course, the unibody aluminum means it feels robust in the hand. It doesn't torque or twist. This is, the Cadillac, the class act of thin and light notebooks, and remains so. Easily the best trackpad on the market. And that's another thing that's missing here is there's no touch screen as you'd find on many of these Windows 8 laptops, but Apple's done such a good job with the trackpad and the trackpad gestures that many folks say, I don't mind because I'm getting, the kind of touch responsive experience just using the trackpad alone. I'm not sure I agree with that. I'd love to see a Retina display on this. I'd love to see a touch screen. It is a lower resolution than, for instance, the comparably priced Acer S7, which has a 1080p display. And I notice it. You know, I use so many Retina devices now that I really can see the difference in terms of the screen resolution. It's not exactly horrible, but it's just not as crisp as I'd like it. So let me, but I have to tell you, amazing battery life, amazing throughput on the SSD drives. The reboot is just seconds. It feels perfectly responsive, and of course you wouldn't maybe with a Retina display be able to push these pixels around as fast as I am. It's just these are important distinctions to know about. The price starts at $1,099 as configured here. This is about $1,450 because I did get the top of the line, put an i7 in it, put 8 gigs of RAM in it, so you can build to order and get it to be a lot more expensive. Pros on this: incredible battery life, best trackpad in the market, best form factor. This is the standard setter in this market. There's just nothing better out there. And the SSD drives are the fastest I've seen on anything. This thing, it does not slow down when you're accessing the hard drive. Cons: well, it's pricier than some PCs. The CPU is slightly slower, which some might take offense at. And I am a little disappointed by the lack of a Retina display. It's not that I don't understand why. It's kind of that's how you get the battery life and the speed. But 1440 by 900 is kind of a low resolution these days. However, no question in my mind, this is an absolute buy. Apple has taken what is probably the best product in this category and made it just a little bit better. I expect to see even more improvement in battery life when the next generation of OS X Mavericks comes out with some features tuned specifically for the Haswell chipset in here. So you're going to see more, believe it or not, more than 12, 13, 14 hours of battery life on something like this. This is the ideal, as Nilay Patel said, the ideal notebook for taking to the coffee shop and staying all day. A definite buy for the 2013 MacBook Air. I love it.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Radford Castro is here. He's our director of engineering, and he has brought with him a little laptop, and I mean little. It's a pretty little laptop.
Yes,
this is from Asus, the Zenbook.
The Zenbook, the UX301.
Okay.
This is actually the, they only have two lines, the lower line and high line, and that's it.
This is high end.
This is actually the lower end.
What?
Yes, this is
Well,
the
what?
i5.
All right.
It runs an i5, but the resolution is off the wall. It's 1560 by 1440.
15, but for an 11-inch screen?
Yeah, for 13.3.
13-inch screen.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
it's pretty impressive, I mean, considering all that it does right here. So, but design-wise, looking at it right now as an Ultrabook, it's pretty clean.
2560.
Yeah, 2560.
I
excuse me.
thought you said 1560.
Oh, no,
2560 by
2560 by
1440. Okay, that I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah. For 13, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has a nice little brush aluminum here. Let's see.
Ooh, pretty.
Yeah.
This is Asus does a great job. This reminds me a little of those
designs,
Transformers.
You got this like
but
swirly
Yeah,
brushed aluminum look or
beautiful.
nickel look.
Is it glass top? Or,
Yeah. This is actually logo actually lights up, and if I open it up, you'll see it light up. There you go. Well, you probably won't be able to see
nice
it that much.
ad for Asus. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice little ad.
Yeah.
Keep it up. And let me show you the profile a little bit. It's actually pretty nice. It's really nice and thin.
This is an Ultrabook. Very much
yes,
so,
it's definitely
yeah.
Ultrabook.
Yeah.
And this thing weighs about 3 pounds.
Wow. It's beautiful.
So, yeah, it's really clean. You're looking at something, you have a couple of things going on here on this side. You got the microphone, headphone jack, and a couple of USB ports. On this side, you have the DCN. And on this side, let me show you the side real quick. This is the SD card and some other stuff, the 3.0, USB 3.0, as well as some power stuff. So, but it's your typical, ports that you'd expect to see from an Ultrabook. You're not going to have things like a DVD drive and any of that stuff. It's meant for on-the-go sort of thing. It's a mobile Ultrabook here. And so here's the display.
Touch?
Yeah, it's definitely touch.
Display.
It's a really nice display.
Yeah.
So I'm going to enter my password in here. Do not look.
Do not look. Burke very thoughtfully put his hand in front of the camera.
So here you go. I'll show you the display again. Yeah, this is a very snappy and responsive, speed at an i5, and this is running at 2560. So of course you're expecting something pretty
That is
snappy.
a high-res display.
Yeah, it's really high res. Now, what really surprises me about this is the performance. But before we get into that, let me show you a little bit on the marks that it got on 3D Mark. So I'm just going to hit photos here. So this is the rating that it got on 3D Mark. I don't know if you could see that, but this is just right above a couple of the ultralight notebooks that are out there. It's scoring 1862 above a 1667. So it's just slightly better than a lot of the ultralight notebooks that are out there right now. But when you're actually playing the games, it's really not that bad. We know it can do stuff like, the spreadsheets and Microsoft Office and all the other good stuff. But let me just run something. And this is an app that just came out. Let me just see if I can run it. I have to go this way because I don't know any other way to navigate to it. This is Despicable Me Minion Rush. And I'm going to just run this thing so you can see how this thing performs.
So this is a little lower DPI than a Retina, but it's as high as an Acer S7, for instance, which would be a comparable.
Yes, it's slightly less than a Retina.
Yeah.
But I mean, just performance-wise, on a Intel integrated card and on an i5, it runs clean.
This is Iris graphics.
Yes. Yeah. And then you got a couple of things going for it. It's obviously running SSDs. You can actually do RAID setups on it.
SSDs, you said too?
Yeah, so you have, this one has a single one, and then on the upper end, you can have two SSDs. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. To have 512. This one actually has, it's actually the lower of the ones. It actually has 128 gigabytes on this one. So you're going to run out of space pretty quick if you're going to get this one. And mind you, this is $17.99 in terms of price.
Ooh. Yeah. So it's expensive for an i5 with 128 gig hard drive. 4 gigs of RAM?
8.
8, all right.
So at least it gets that.
Yeah.
And then you have a couple of things. The nice thing, though, it has a nice keyboard and it's backlit. So I don't know if you can see that.
I mean, this is an ultralight. For something as small as this is still pretty good.
Yeah, it's a clean-looking keyboard.
Pricey.
And thank you for the lights there. Wow. Well, you won't be able to see it that way, but if I angle it just a bit, you could definitely see the light coming from an angle.
Leaking around.
Yes. Yeah. So it's pretty clean. In terms of its design, I mean, it's a no-nonsense design. The speakers, you might want to hear it just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and go into the desktop.
And we'll, of course, have to give you our opinion since you're not going to hear at home the rich, deep sound coming out of those tiny speakers.
Take this out of mute. Pretty sure John will appreciate this soundtrack. This is a great test soundtrack for this kind of stuff.
It's got some bass.
Yeah. But check this out. While I'm running this, one of the things that Asus does have, let me turn this down so you guys can hear me. It's actually pretty clean. Asus has this thing called Audio Wizard. So I'm going to show that to you again. Here's Audio Wizard. And it has a couple of stuff here like music mode and movies mode. And you have these controls that allow you to change the max bass and the max treble. So this allows you to mess around with Bang & Olufsen's Ice Power. And you can hear some bass. Now, when you heard the speakers, they sounded kind of tinny, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of expected from an Ultrabook.
Yeah.
But when you plug in your headphone or into an external speaker,
that's what this is for, right?
That's exactly what it's for. I mean, you're trying to push the audio, you're trying to push the amplifier into that sort of thing, and it works well. It sounds good. You guys are gonna just have to trust me on that. But for the most part, it sounds good. But just from the speakers from here, the stock speakers that it comes with, it's not so great.
You can't.
A famous word, tinny.
Yeah,
right.
You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, as my mom used to say.
So aside from that, the battery life is actually pretty good. This is using Haswell, so it's pushing about 5 to 7 hours. And of course, on Windows Pro, I'm actually running several things at the same time, and this is all running in performance. So here's some more performance demos. This is actually running in real time. This is Dungeon Hunter 4, which was just recently released for Windows 8. And it's pretty clean, I mean, the way it's running. So
pros and cons.
That's pros and cons. Well, it has great performance for an i5. This is at 1560 by 1440. It's extremely sharp display, and it's versatile and lightweight. On the con side, the graphics card could be a little bit better. I'm hoping to see like NVIDIA. If you're paying this kind of money, you want to have GeForce inside, right? The other thing too, it has a mini HDMI, so the cables will are kind of hard to find if you're trying to use a mini HDMI. And it's pricey. That's the other big con. So at the very end, I'm going to give this a try. It's almost a buy, but if you see this thing on sale, it's definitely worth a buy. But right now, it's a try.
$1,800.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. I think you buy it because it looks good, right?
Yeah.
It's really the looks that you're buying.
Yeah, you're definitely getting some bragging rights.
Yeah.
So
Radford Castro, the Asus Zenbook UX301LA, the latest ultralight from Asus.